Sure.
Sure.
Interesting. Go ahead,
So
Jerry.
before we go a little bit deeper in, you and Steve have both been referring to it as Zcash. I know we didn't want to do that. Could you talk about why it's now called Horizen and why that switch happened?
From Zencash.
Or Zencash? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just mentioned Zcash as
Multiple times, yeah.
but Zcash being one project and Zencash being another. So
Right.
Yeah. So
we all get confused.
Exactly.
That's the first point. So,
yeah, we got you,
yeah.
Yuri.
Right. Exactly. Both of them.
I've been to a few conferences, and obviously, my colleagues as well. And 50% of people used to ask us, "Hey, what's Zencash? Is it the same as Zcash or Zcash? Or
I was confused.
What's the difference?" Or
Z Classic as well. It was like,
yeah, exactly.
what the hell? Seriously, why is everyone using a Z? Because of the Z.
So that was one. So that was one reason to just not get confused with them anymore.
Sure.
And second reason was that we wanted to get rid of the cash because it kind of felt limiting to the approach we're taking. So we want to be more than just a currency, but enable developers to build on our platform and develop applications on our platform. So the cash didn't really feel suited for that.
Sure.
And the confusion part.
Right. Which we've just demonstrated a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've done it now, and you've done it, Yuri. So we're classic. Oh no, not Z Classic.
And then obviously we decided to keep the little E in the end because there's a bunch of projects all over the place called Horizen, not just blockchain, like in general.
Yes.
It's not the least common name, and this kind of kept our heritage to Zen.
To be honest, actually, the name
Sure.
Horizen, with Z-E-N or Z-E-N at the end, is quite clever in a way because it's showing you kind of like a horizon of the future, where you're going. And of course, that also leads us to the question of we're putting behind us the old, Zencash company. We're moving into this new generation of the Horizen brand. And where is that taking us? What are the plans?
So what we're working on right now heavily is developing a sidechain implementation.
Okay.
That's what our engineering team in Milan is mostly concerned with right now. And so a sidechain is a blockchain in and of itself that can communicate with another blockchain. So in our case, our main proof of work blockchain can communicate with a separate one that can be suited for different purpose. And then we're also building an SDK, so a software development kit, that should allow developers from different projects, different companies, whatever, to build on top of our platform quite easily with libraries where they can choose functions from. So they don't have to build everything from scratch, but they can basically put together different pieces and make their own customized blockchain for whatever needs they want to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
It's really
That's the plan for now.
So in some respects, I mean, dare I say having this chain connected to a chain with interoperability starts to sound a little bit like Komodo. Would you say that they're in some respects a competitor to you guys, or really going after completely different markets and different solutions and different problems?
I mean, I guess there's definitely, there will be an overlap in some parts, but I wouldn't really consider us competition, especially as both platforms are developing open source. So, right. I mean, they can take some of our code if it works better. We can take some of their code if it works better. So actually, especially when I went to conferences and talked to other blockchain projects, it's not that competitive, to be honest. It's quite collaborative, and oftentimes talk about, hey, what challenges are you trying to solve right now? Hey, we found a nice solution for that. Hey, how did you do it? So, I mean, in the end, we're all kind of trying to get to the same, with kind of the same values. Most of the projects in the space, the good ones, making more decentralized future possible. Also allowing like small businesses and stuff to operate with less friction, make software development easier, so make blockchain more accessible in general, because right now you need like a bunch of developers that you won't find because blockchain developers are kind of rare.
Mm-hmm.
So the technology is great, but you need to make it more accessible to more people in more industries. And then you want to build nice features that you couldn't achieve before.
Right.
Because that's the main selling point of blockchain, that there's some properties that you just can't do with databases.
So effectively, by building these side chains, you could allow companies to say, hey, we're going to use your SDK, or we're going to use your APIs, and we're going to build our own blockchain that suits our own business needs, but it's connected into the Horizen network to give you the benefit of the mining, the transaction verification.
And you have a native currency.
So what if you don't need a native currency because you're just using it for some company transactions that aren't necessarily related to
some data?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that works as well. You don't have to
Cool.
you don't have to implement the cross-chain transfer protocol. So you can use it to store data safely. That works. And I mean, for example, for example, you could imagine something like public key registry for something. I mean, just for encrypted email. You have your email address, and then you have a public key, and usually you have to exchange it at some point, so you can actually send encrypted emails back and forth. But you could think of a registry on the blockchain that says, hey, email address Jonas Rubel at so-and-so.
Here's a weird example, right? So if you think about big corporates, everything's centralized. If you get into smaller or mid-sized companies, they don't have their own trusted network between all the computers and all the people. I mean, they're using Google, and that's their main mechanism for email and for how they communicate. They're just using the internet and maybe VPN for something, but most of the stuff tends to be quite open. So what I think I see in that, there's a problem set that I start to see happen in that, which is asset management. By assets, I mean computers and phones that are being handed out by the company to the employees. So what if you could manage and you talked about the keys, what if I were to manage the licenses of all the hardware for my company by creating a blockchain I just came up with this. So I'm just thinking out loud here, but
yeah, sure.
I've got a company, I've got a fleet of 100 laptops, I've got employees scattered all over the world, and I want to just store the keys or the assets of those individuals on my chain, and I'm going to use the Horizen network so I can actually track where those assets are and make sure I can move them from person to person, but I have my asset management effectively stored centrally in the cloud.
Right. Yeah, sure. I mean, because you mentioned fleet of laptops, there's actually a bunch of companies looking into fleet management for cars, and
exactly.
For example, large construction companies that have a bunch of what do you call those things in English again? That dig holes.
The bulldozers?
Yeah, not really the bulldozers, but bulldozers as well.
Do the digging, like the big scooping machines.
Yeah, the scooping machine.
Well, clearly the
but scooping machine can't be the proper term anyway.
I think we should go with scooping machines. I think that sounds great.
Yeah. So if you have a bunch of
a title for this episode forming, and it's not
scooping machines.
Announcing scooping machines.
So you can efficiently track where your scooping machines are on which construction site.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely a problem.
Never going to hear the end of this, am I, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Sure. I mean, that makes sense, though, because even on like the larger construction sites, there's cranes and a bunch of other, on top of the actual, I've read about some projects happening where they actually being able to pinpoint where the construction workers are for safety reasons, so they don't wander into an area that's that they shouldn't, and then suddenly like a large piece of equipment, whether it's a crane, drops a heavy load around them because it's quite dangerous.
Now there's a bunch of pretty cool use cases for exactly that purpose, like fleet management of whatever kind of device.
Well, so this is great because we've got some real use cases. So for anybody that's listening that wants to say, hey, I've got a small mid-sized company, or I want to solve a fleet management problem, get in touch with us on the show. We'll put you in touch with Jonas, and you guys can go and have a conversation about how to deploy something on the Horizen network. Why not?
Sure.
I mean, that's what we're here to do, is to help people figure out how to take technology like this and get it out to the masses. This is a great discussion. I love it.
And while we're at it, what I think is also a really nice use case, this is away from Horizen again, but want to mention it nonetheless. Have you guys heard about, so Mercedes is working on something where they, for now it's going to be opt-in, where you can track your vehicle data, and then in the end, when you want to resell your vehicle, you can prove, hey, I got this data locked on the blockchain, where it says, hey, I never revved the engine up when it was cold. I only did long distance drives. And then in the end, your car is going to retain much more value if you can prove that you maintained it nicely.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting use case as well.
It's very interesting.
That is very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I think we've covered an awful lot about, privacy coins and a lot about Horizen. Is there anything else we want to round off toward here at the end of the episode, just to kind of leave people with anything to think about, or any ways they can engage with Horizen or with your academy as kind of a closing?
Sure. So first of all, come check out our website. I think it's with quite a bunch of information on there on what's happening. Steve mentioned that there's a little bit of information overload, so I'll talk to our guys that we can clean it up a bit.
Yeah, sorry, I gave a little bit of feedback off camera, of course, but it's because I always take pride in going through the projects before I get on, to do the discussions like this. And I mean, feedback is always seen as, if it's valuable and helps you guys,
And I mean, it's perfectly fine, because if you look at your own website for a while, of course you don't see as many things as somebody that looks at it for the first time again. So always appreciate it. I'd love to have you guys check out the Horizen Academy.
Definitely.
Well, so one thing I'll mention is that, so Yuri and I have actually written a book which will be coming out later in the year, and the book was actually written to help people get started in crypto, and it's probably what you'd call the basic chapters that would fit in very closely with what you were describing. We don't have the tabs for advanced and expert yet.
I definitely want a copy of that book.
Yeah, we'd be happy to give you a copy and to share it with people within your network. I mean, absolutely. And if there's any value in some of the content, of course, we'd be happy to share it with your group, or even to create some specialized content for you within your academy. It's been a big passion of Yuri's and mine too, to create some educational content to help people. And we've got other things cooking in the educational space too that we haven't announced yet. So
let's definitely keep in touch about that.
Cool. I love it. Sure.
And so obviously our academy is going to launch, and like any other website, in the beginning it won't be perfect. So if you have any good suggestions, if you have any feedback, if you find any bugs, let us know. We've dedicated a special email address for that, academy@horizen.global. And we're really looking forward to get some feedback on it. Also on the content, maybe we messed something up at some point. Let us know. We're happy to. It's going to be work in progress, and it's going to take a while until it's like we imagine it to be. But we wanted to put it out there for now, so we can actually start collecting feedback and make it so that users like it.
Fantastic. That's great. That's really
great. They get value out of it. Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you, Jonas. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show, and certainly we'd love to have you back once the Academy's out for a while and people have had some time to give feedback and use it. We'll certainly engage with you in further conversations as well.
That was a pretty good talk here.
Thank you.
It was. Thank you, Jonas.
Yeah, really enjoyed that. So, Yuri, is there anything else you'd like to say? Any closing remarks before we go?
No, I think I'm good for now. Thank you.
Oh, no, there's one thing we didn't talk about, in fact, which is, I'd like to just ask real quick because it's on my mind. What's your view, Jonas, about the relationship between privacy coins and tax? We talked about it earlier, and I completely forgot I wanted to talk about this with you. So just real quick before we jump off here.
Yeah. Also for the other audience, we talked about this quite a bit before, and all of us agreed on that. And it's actually my opinion. Privacy or cryptocurrencies and privacy coins in general will probably force the authorities to think about taxation again, because some of the existing models of taxation won't work in the new financial system.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, that's a good thing, because I think especially looking at more machines, the IoT world, machine-to-machine communication, and artificial intelligence, like you have to tax machines.
Yeah.
And cryptocurrency actually allow you to do that quite efficiently. But they have to put a lot of thought into how to make this work together, because I think digital money, like decentralized digital money, is inevitable in the midterm. Mid to long term.
In English, we say it's the groundswell that's building up, and we're kind of we're an unstoppable force of people in nature now that are pushing in crypto and in blockchain, and if people wanted to stop us, I think they're too late now. There's too many of us involved and engaged in this, moving things ahead. And